Well, welcome to the KC Stars podcast, where we talk to people in the local Kansas City film community. And I have with us someone you may recognize from the news. I have Will Carter. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, Will.
Hey Kyle, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a long time since I've done the news now, but there may be a few that still remember me back from the weather days. But yeah, my old life actually, I was a TV meteorologist, so I used to stand in front of a green screen, which in our world we would call visual effects these days. But the magic of TV and movies, and I would point at nothing and make tell you what the weather was doing. But anyway, I got out of TV a few years ago and crossed back over into the marketing world. And when I did, it gave me the opportunity to get back into the filmmaking side, which is really where my passion has always been since I was a little kid. And I've really dived back into the film scene. I guess a little bit about me. I grew up in rural West Tennessee, about an hour from Memphis, and right in the middle of Memphis and Nashville. So that was an interesting area to grow up because we were surrounded by arts. Honestly, you had the music scene that was happening in Memphis, which was very R&B and rap and things like that. And then over in Nashville, you had country music, but you also had a lot of productions happening at that time because at that time CMT was there, and so there were a lot of music videos being made, some movies were being made. So I remember working on some sets there when I was very young in my teenage years, and I just got that bug, and that's kind of what led me into working into TV and going that route. But film was something I've been doing since like my teen years. My grandpa had a garage in his backyard, and every summer, me and all the neighborhood kids would get out there and we would make shows and we would film it with our old VHS. You remember when the VHS cameras
Oh,
came
yeah,
out
those
back in like the
big
early
cameras.
90s, the big guys. And funny enough, later down the line, I'd be carrying news cameras that were way bigger. But for a consumer camera, those things were huge. But I remember using that, and we would do shows and we would make little short films and clips, and I just never grew out of that, and I just kind of carried that over into my adult life. And now in my main job as a marketing director, I'm making TV commercials and I'm doing a lot of the same very similar stuff that I did with all of that. But filmmaking obviously is my passion and my expensive hobby, as I like to call it. And so I spend a lot of my time and energy when I'm not at work making films. And it was funny because in preps for this, I'm looking, kind of trying to figure out like where am I anyway with all of this, and counting them up, I'm actually about to cross the threshold of 10 films over the last couple of years that I've produced and directed over the last couple of years. So a lot of exciting things happening, and I'm really excited to be a part of the KC film scene. The film community in KC's really accepted me with open arms and given me a chance to work with a lot of cool people and do a lot of things that I don't even know that I would have gotten to do otherwise. And so it's just cool to be a part of all of it. And I'm really excited to be on the show and get to talk about all this with you.
That's awesome. Now, you produce and you direct your own films?
I do
Any other
produce and direct.
part of the role you producing and directing is enough, but I'm just
I lo-
curious.
I lo- I love all of it, and I think it's tough for me because sometimes I have to make myself just do one job because having grown up and done it a little bit of everything, and especially working in the news, I wasn't always on the air in the news side either. I produced and all was a camera operator and a news photographer, so I've done the camera side and all that stuff too. And so sometimes it's hard for me to like focus and hone in, but the other things that I just love to do outside of directing and producing is probably gaffing is my favorite thing. I am obsessed with lighting. If you can't tell, I had to light the set here today, but lighting is my thing in set design. I design a lot of sets and build sets for my films and for other people's films. In fact, I just recently built a set for a feature film here in Kansas City, and I've got another set that I'm working on for another friend that's coming up for a shoot that's happening Sunday. So a lot of times I build sets just kind of in my free time. That's something I love to do. But for mostly for my stuff myself, I'm usually directing and producing those myself.
Is it hard to let someone work the camera, or as a director, you kind of have the ability to go behind and say,
Yeah.
let's switch this up. How does that work?
You know that that I've actually gotten really lucky on that side. I've worked with some really good cinematographers. I have to give a shout out to my friend James here, and he's down in Springfield, and he kind of got me back into filmmaking a few years ago, and we've worked together on quite a few films. And here locally, I've worked with some great cinematographers, and so I'm learning to trust them. And I've also learned in the last few years that from a directing standpoint, if you can really focus on directing and you can trust your crew and have the right crew in place, then everybody can hyper focus on the one thing that they're actually really good at. And so that means your overall project's going to be a lot better because it's great to direct and it's great to dabble in all the things. But if I'm doing this and doing that and doing this, I'm going to miss something. And I think everybody knows what that feels like when you get into the edit bay and go, oh man, if I would have just done that a little bit better, or oh, I can't believe I missed that. A lot of times we're missing it because we're distracted trying to do too many things at once. And so I've really learned to trust your crew. And, obviously crew sizes can vary. Like I'm not afraid to work with a big crew, and I often do work with big crews, but I also sometimes you want to keep that small. So I think it's just finding that balance for you and what works. But I'm definitely not afraid to like let others take the reins on the stuff that they're good at. So
So, you were talking about producing and directing, but you did not mention writing. Are you a
I
writer as
know.
well?
Actually, no, I'm not a big writer. And I know a lot of your guests. I was watching some clips over the last week, and I know a lot of your guests are writers. And actually, that's funny. I am not a big writer. I definitely can take a script and I like to go in and like polish it more for like the director standpoint of things and like tweak it to like how I'm going to need it for actually directing it. But I think there are some incredible writers, and I actually love to like work with writers. That's something that a few people are starting to learn about me, and I'm working with some local writers now on some of their projects where they've asked me to come in and direct some of their films, and I love doing that. And if it's a script that means something to me and I think is like a good fit for me as a director, I'll get in it and I'll get in behind it 100% and put all my energy into it. I just love doing that kind of stuff. I know one of your good friends actually. We did a little micro short just recently. It was with Eric Willis actually. It was called You Asked. It was just a quick like 3 minute little micro short film, but Eric wanted to be the lead actor in it. It was basically a story he had written for himself to act in, and he asked me to direct. And Kyle, I had so much fun working with him on that day. And again, that's what I love about that. And I'm working with a couple of other writers right now on a short, and then eventually a feature that I'm going to be producing next year. So just it's kind of fun to not be in that world. I don't enjoy the writing process, and I know others that's their thing, but it's not mine. I just like bringing the story to life.
Yeah, and I'm speaking for Eric, but he said this so many times that you've probably even heard it. If he were to do one thing, it would be a writer.
Yes, yes, and he's a really good writer,
He
actually.
is an
Uh,
outstanding writer. His
he
stories are
is.
excellent. I am so proud to have been part of some of his projects, including the one he's working on now, Finding Tessa. Um,
Yeah.
he's an excellent writer. I mean, I actually think he's a good director too, but he claims writing as his first. Um, how did you learn how to work with cameras? Because it's kind of like a lot of people can act and they just show up and then they pick it up.
Yeah.
How did you learn? Camera's usually not that way.
Yeah, I think camera is interesting because I love working the camera, and that's one thing I think as a director I work really well with the cinematographers because I was a camera guy, and so I know how to speak the same language as that they do. But when I think back like early on, and I love to say this so that like aspiring filmmakers understand this, there was a time when I use this example that happened to me in when I was in the news business. When I was in Memphis, my chief photographer there took me out one day, and we went out into a park and we pulled up to a fire hydrant, and we got out and we were in the park, and he's like, all right, that fire hydrant there, that's a 60-second news story, make it the best news story I've ever seen. And I'm sitting there like what are you talking about? And what came out of that was a really good learning opportunity that it doesn't matter what camera you have, it doesn't matter any of the other stuff. It's what can you do through the lens that makes something else interesting. And that's just things that you have to learn over time. And you learn that by picking the camera up and playing with it and learning that if I flip this setting, it does this, or that if I rack the focus, suddenly that thing looks way cooler than it did before. Or if I do a little pan or a little tilt or anything like that, I think it's really just about working with it. You know, we're in an age where, like, sometimes good cinematographers can scare newer people coming into filmmaking because of all the terminology. As you know, there's a million different cameras and they all have their specialties and they all do their things. And that can be very intimidating to somebody that's new. But the premise of camera is just get behind it and play with it and figure out what it does. Um, One of the things I really like to tell people is look for a scene in a film and see if you can recreate it. I do this all the time when I'm watching TV and movies and stuff. I'm like, man, how did they shoot that scene? And so as a director and a cinematographer, I'll sit and like break that down in my head and go, okay, they were probably lighting it this way. They were probably doing this with the camera. And I think just doing that critical thinking a little bit, then going and playing with it yourself and seeing if you can recreate it will help you learn some of those more advanced skills with the camera and help you be a better camera operator and cinematographer overall.
No, so I not that I don't like peop talking to people under 40 as well, but people that are 40 or older a lot of times have this breadth of experience, and you are no exception. Talking about working in Memphis and then in Kansas City on the news, did you go to school for it, or did you were there and did it? And like I see
It's
these
a
poor
great
reporters,
question.
I see
Yeah,
the
that's
poor
a
reporters out whenever it's dark. My wife and I always laugh because they're in front of a building that's closed and they're out there in the morning talking about the building and all that. Did you do that first, or how did you get started? Sorry,
I
such a long
start
setup.
No, I started behind the scenes. So okay, I guess let me backtrack here. So when I graduated high school, I actually did go off to college with the intent to major in film. As many college kids experience, life doesn't always take you where you want it to go. So I ended up not finishing that, but and came back home for a little bit. But I still had that bug to do film and do TV and all that stuff. I've always been captivated by it. And my local TV station in my hometown, which is a very small market, very, very small TV station, they had a position open for a camera operator in the studio. And I was like, I don't know if I even have remotely have the experience to do this. But I got in and I got hired onto the station as a part-time camera operator in the studio. And from that moment on, I just like I was in the mix of it. And so what I did, and this is what I encourage everyone to do because this is how experience is built. I got in there and I learned everything. There's a person that where you can be given an opportunity like that, and you go, oh yeah, I'm just a camera guy in the studio. That's exactly how I could have taken that opportunity. But by the time I left that first station, I had been a camera guy. I had worked in the field as a photographer. I had produced the news. I had done a little bit of everything, and every one of those jobs taught me more and more and more about the process of creating TV, which is really no different than creating film. It's so similar. And so as years went on and I continued to develop that craft, it was really just about leaning into it and getting in there and doing as much as you can. I challenge people that all the time. I'm like, don't be scared by the older person that's got more experience. Because guess what? We started where you did. We didn't know anything when we were younger. I didn't know anything. And there's people that are younger than me today that know more than I do. And that's okay. But I just have to learn from every experience how to do something a little bit better. And so yeah, so I actually didn't major in film. I majored in theater, I majored in journalism, and I majored in meteorology. So I have three completely unrelated degrees. I say unrelated, which is very, it is what it is, because again, TV and film are very similar. But I used my years in TV to learn the craft. I did. And so I've got more of the TV background, but it's all applicable to what we do. And so whether you're just doing film or you're doing TV or maybe you're doing photography even, there's something that can be learned from all that you can apply.
I think that's fantastic, and I know someone who is in St. Joe, and they worked for the St. Joe
Mhm.
News, and their job was when someone hired them, like, we want to do a local commercial. He went out, filmed it, got it back, edited it, put it in. I think he did. I think he was a one-man show. I could be wrong. But then he's doing movies now based on
Mhm.
years of experience working for the news, making commercials.
That's right. In fact, I have, and it's funny because I know some of our IFCKC members work in television now currently. In fact, one of our board members, Justin, that I'm on the board with, he's a commercial producer at KSHB at 41. And that's very common that like people learn a lot of that from the TV world and you can apply that. So I always say that like if you just really want to get your foot in, go work at a TV station for a couple of years and just get some of that under your belt because it at least will teach you the basic principles. The other thing that I like to say is, if you really want to work in film, you just got to go do it. Your first few opportunities are not going to be paid. That's just the reality of how the world works. But experience is invaluable. And I tell a lot of people ask the question, should I go to college and get the degree? And that is a loaded question, but I will say this. There's nothing that I think I ever learned in college that truly prepared me for what we were doing in the real world. Now, whether that's in TV or film or whatever, what really counts is that you get those fundamentals, but you've got to go out and do the actual practice. It's very different in reality. The practice is different. I took years and years of classes in college on how to do the news. Guess what? The news works nothing like it does in the classroom. And film is much the same way. You're going to learn all the principles. You're going to learn the history. You're going to learn those things. You're going to learn, how it works in a classroom setting. But a classroom setting is not how it always works in the real world. And so it's really just about applying yourself, leaning in, getting the experience, doing those free projects, getting in there. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to build resources. And I think that's fun to talk about because I love connecting with people and I love kind of trying people out. And so I say that to say that I've worked with dozens and dozens of people in Kansas City over the last few years. And one of the things that I do is I like to work with people that maybe I haven't worked with before to kind of see where's their skill set at. And if they don't have the skills, are they learning the skills and are they active in the process? Because if they are, I'm more likely to work with them again. And when I find people that I'm like, oh yeah, they're really good at what they do, or they're going to be really good at what they do, those are the people that I put in my back pocket that I want to work with over and over and over again. And it gets to a point where you kind of start working with a certain group because you've kind of built that up with them and you trust them. And when you can trust people, it's a lot easier to work with them.
I think Kansas City, it is a small community. I'm sure we overlap dozens of people that we both are friends or acquaintances
Uh-huh.
with. But one of the things that I've noticed, some directors use the same people over and over and over. Some do not. And I will tell you just because, like Eric Willis, I auditioned for the last part I got,
Mhm.
even though I played the lead and I played the supporting roles in things in the past. He wants to see if there's someone who fits the role best rather than just saying, I've worked with him before, I like him or whatever,
Mhm.
give it to him. And I've thought about it a lot. I actually really respect that because that gives everybody a chance. Um,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There is something about, the acting side especially. There's something about working with people that like what their performance is going to be all the time, but I think there's also something magical about working with someone that and giving somebody a break and seeing something in someone that maybe they don't even see yet. There's been a few people that I've worked with that were not relatively well known. They were fantastic actors.
right.
There's one in particular. I'm just going to call him out. My buddy Dana Johnson. I know he's been in a lot of stuff, but he's not always used in a lot of stuff. And I got a chance to work with him a few years ago on a one night stand, and then he's been in several of my films since then. And he is such a great talent. I love working with this guy. He's so good. In fact, he won us a Best Actor award for One Night Stand a couple of years ago for one of his portrayals of as the rap artist in our smash hit one. And he's just so much fun to work with, and he can lean into all these different characters. I don't care what you throw at him. And the thing I like about him is you don't see Dana all the time on screen. He's not one of the faces that you see in every single thing. And I like working with people like that. There are definitely people that are amazing actors, but there's some that I feel like I see over and over and over and
Sure.
over. And that's awesome because they're doing great things. But I'm not afraid to take a chance on somebody new, honestly, and somebody that's maybe not as widely known because I think to Eric's point, sometimes you're missing out on the person that could be better for the role just because you're going after only solely somebody that you trust. And so I think there is something to be said about that process.
And I'm serious. What's his last name again? I'm actually interested in learning more about him.
Dana Johnson.
Dana
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
All right. I actually have some pictures for you. If you've watched the show before, you
Uh-oh.
knew it was coming. So here we go. I'm going
Oh
to
no.
ask you about these pictures. It's nothing, not,
Okay.
I only want you to look good. So trust me,
No,
I
you're fine. I'm
only
messing with
want
you.
you to look good. So here we go. All right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what is this?
So that is a picture of our team from the 2025 One Night Stand. We actually made a film called Happy Birthday, I guess. And this picture is a great example of what I was talking about. I'm looking at this picture right now. And other than James, who's popping his head out back there in the background over towards the left. So that's James, my cinematographer I was talking about that I've worked with. But everybody else in that picture, I had never worked with before.
Oh,
Everybody on our team was a brand new person to me. And that was so much fun getting to fill them all out and figure out their dynamics and how we would all work well together. And they were great. In fact, our team, we had about another 10 people that didn't make that picture, but a lot of these were people I had never worked with before. And we absolutely had a blast working on that film.
that's awesome. And I know Austria,
Yeah.
and I don't know this guy, but I have seen him in
That's
lots of
that's
stuff.
Curtis, and so that's a great point. So Curtis had showed up at the IFC actor showcase the month before, and I saw him in the actor showcase, and I was like, he's a really good actor. I'm going to reach out to him and see if he's got a team, and he didn't. And so I brought him in. He was fantastic, and he's one of those that I want to work with again because I had a blast. And he wasn't as well known. He's mostly a theater actor, and
Okay.
so he's a good crossover from the theater world. And I'm trying to see here. And so like Landon there and Asaya, they both came out of Gordon's program there. So they just, both of them have only been out of high school for a couple of years and they're fantastic talents. And I'm trying to see here. And so then Addie and Sam, the two on the right. So Addie and I, again, the whole connections thing, Addie and I worked in TV together about a decade ago, and
Wow.
that's her son Sam, who's now an actor. And they drove all the way up from Springfield to be on our team and spent the weekend up here with us doing the one night stand team. So it's
Wow.
just you build a family.
That's
Filmmaking is
fantastic.
such a collaborative process, and you kind of build a family as you go. It's kind of fun.
I actually know what this is, but other people don't. Tell me what this is. I recognize Mary too.
Yeah, that was from Clown at a Funeral. That was a part of the filmmaker face off last year. That was a super fun film to work on. We had a huge cast and crew for that film. We literally filled this little church up. We shot this down where I live in Greenwood, and there was a little church just in downtown. And when we were doing Clown at a Funeral, Justin wrote the script for that one, and in my head, I had a very specific look for that. Like production design was in my head big on that one. I wanted the small town church. I wanted it to look like the church that I grew up in and to feel like the church I grew up in. And I was determined it was going to have stained glass windows. Like there was this whole list of criteria that I had just for the church alone, because I really do care about the setting. Because I think when you're in the right setting, it gives the actors and the crew something to react to and to be a part of. So we shot at that little church, and it was crazy because our crew and cast was so big, we literally filled the entire church up. And so we've got Crafty running downstairs, and then everything's happening upstairs, and it was just a lot of fun. Mary was fantastic. That was the first time I had worked with Mary. Let's see. And it just I don't know. We had a blast in that film. Again, a lot of people I had not even worked with before in this one. So
Is that
so that's what that
Frederick
one.
is the clown?
It is Frederick. Yeah, Frederick
Oh,
was the clown, and then Tobias Sloan we ended up doing two clowns in ours because he ends up
wow.
making a friend, which is one of the family members. We actually gender flipped one of the characters that we originally had in there, so that the main character that was played by Jessica Whitfield, we gave her a brother
Oh,
in our script. And so Tobias played the brother who ended up kind of becoming besties with the clown. And then he decides to do the clown thing too. So you end up with two clowns by the end of the movie. And it was a lot of fun to work on that one. Oh, and I liked that challenge because we had a little bit more time that we could take with it. And it was a good one to work on. Huge, like I said, again, huge cast and crew, about half of that group I had worked with before, and about half of them I had never worked with before. So
Well, I'll
just
tell
a lot
you,
of
everybody you've named, some I've worked with, some I haven't, but you've got the A team there.
yeah, we had a lot of fun. Oh no, old school.
Okay, okay, here, let's get the, okay. All right, here we go.
There we go. I mean, I don't care. You can show it. That's just an old that one that you had up. That was just an old one for me doing weather back in the day. I did weather at about four different
Oh,
TV stations, and that was one of the ones that I filled in on. That was Fox 5 down in Springfield. But a lot of fun, a lot of fun. I used to do weather for half of my life, so I can't not talk about doing weather.
well, I used
This.
to live in Springfield.
Oh, did you really?
I probably saw you. I've lived in Springfield. It sounds like I've moved so much, but the reality is when you're 56 and you move every 10 years, it
Yeah.
sounds like a lot of places, but you know, it's really
Yep.
not. But I graduated from Missouri State for my bachelor's
Okay.
and stayed around
I
there
worked.
for a while, moved to Kansas City, moved back, so I was there. I probably saw you on the news.
Probably so, because
Um,
I worked at almost all the stations down there. I worked at KY3, KSBR, and then
oh
eventually at
yeah.
Fox 5. So I've worked at pretty much every station down there except the CBS affiliate. So
You know what? My dad would probably recognize your name. My dad watches the news as if it's his job to watch the news.
yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I don't, funny enough, I don't at all anymore. I don't like watching the news, but it's also a culture, a product of the world we live in now. It's not exactly fun to watch anymore. So,
Yeah, I'll send. Yeah, you're. That's another
so
story. I'm trying not to get into my podcast.
right, amen,
But no,
amen.
yeah, I'll actually send a picture of you to my dad and say, "Do you remember this guy?" And I bet he does.
Yeah, send the old picture though, because I lost a lot of weight and look a little different than I did back then. But that picture you have, that's pretty much what I looked like when I used to do it. There's some clips out on my other YouTube. If you ever want to go peruse, I'll send you some of my old weather clips because they're out there.
Very cool.
I just don't share them very often.
Oh, that's good. What do we have
Yeah. So,
here?
oh, this one's special to me. This is from the Sato 48 film competition in Springfield, and that's Jeff. Jeff has been hosting that thing for over 20 years now. They created that, and that's me holding the best set design award for Cold Heart. That was this one was special to me because this was when my friend James down there kind of got me back into the filmmaking world, and we did the Sato in 2023 with a film called Time's Up that we actually shot in Kansas City up in North KC and over on the KCK side. But the second year, we did Cold Heart, and Cold Heart was a sci-fi. Um, and I took a big leap of faith on this because in the first year, one of the things I had learned with a time challenge is don't give yourself like four set moves and location changes because that's a horrible, horrible idea because everything that can will go wrong. And it did. So that second year, we were like, let's figure out what we can do to have this environment as controlled as possible. And so I was like, we're going to build a set. And the thing with a challenge like this is you don't know your prompts until the weekend of. But we were like, okay, well, we came up with this whole thing and we were like, there's ways that we could take it. So I built this big sci-fi set that could have either been a lab or a spaceship, or we weren't really sure what it was going to be. It was going to depend on what the prompts were for the challenge. But for about a month leading up to the challenge, I built this huge set in my garage here in Kansas City and then transported it in a trailer down to Springfield. And
Oh
we
my goodness.
reset it back up at my friend Trent and Amanda's house down there in their garage and like built the set in their garage. And we had a cryogenic chamber and all this stuff. And again, we still didn't know how any of this was going to fit in because we couldn't write the script. We just basically had a set and we knew that it was going to be sci-fi and that we were going to do some sort of a sci-fi flick. And that's all we knew. And I ended up working with some incredible writers down there. And I remember they delivered the challenge that weekend, and it was kind of sports themed, and it was like, oh, how are we going to lean into this? Because there had to be like a challenge, and a lot of people took that very sports related, but we turned it into like an inner office sports thing, and we had like a
Mhm.
dartboard in the lab, and we ended up turning it into a lab when they were like doing cryogenic sleep is what we did for the story, and it worked for the challenge. It was kind of fun how it all worked out, but that was literally terrifying because we're sitting there, and as they're like reading the challenge prompts, there's like a moment where my heart drops and I'm like, oh God, how are we going to fit a sci-fi set into what they just said? Because it was a big gamble.
Sure.
But after we get back to the house and I get in there with like all the writers and everything, all of a sudden they just start jamming out ideas, and I'm like, oh yeah, and this works and this works. And Cold Heart ended up going on to win multiple awards. It actually won three awards, two in the U.S. and one overseas internationally. We won Best Set Design, Best Sci-Fi in the New York International, and then honorable mention in Absurd over in Italy. So it was just really cool. That one was in like more than a dozen film festivals, and it ran the film festival circuit. In fact, it's still floating in the film festival circuit now.
Wow.
And it was just a lot of fun because that was the one, Kyle, where I think I got to put all of me into it. I got to direct, but leading up to it, I got to do this incredible production design. And I built this beautiful set and this functioning cryogenic chamber that we could fog up and had all these crazy lights on it. And so my background and set and lighting design and all of that really got to come out in that one. And it was a very special movie for me, and it always will be. I think I'll never forget that experience because that was the one that really got me and threw me back into the filmmaking world again. And ever
Wow.
since then, it's just been a blur, and I've just been trying to keep up because now I'm doing stuff all the time, and I think I owe it all to that film. So
That's great. I actually saw it had a lot of awards.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's my friend Steve. So that's actually my James, that was my cinematographer. That's his wife Steve. And we've been good friends for years. Again, those are the two people that got me back into film. And so like I adore those two people so much. They did a lot of this for me. So
very good. And what is this?
Okay, so that's James again there in the back. So that was the first year that we did the Sato 48, and this was the one that we filmed in North Kansas City actually. So we were this was the psychologist. I believe we were in the psychologist's office or something, and we basically did kind of a American Psycho kind of script where this guy snaps, and the challenge was basically that like you had to use a prop as a toy, and we found this gumball machine. And so just talking about like coincidence, we the set that we were using was actually Design Works, which is part of iWorks in North Kansas City. They were so great to let us film there. And they had this gumball machine sitting on the counter. And when the challenge said that you have to use a object as a toy or something that resembles a toy, we saw the gumball machine and I said, man, nothing talks toy and like old school toy quite like a gumball machine does. So
Yeah.
I remember we drove around to all the stores that night trying to find someone that had like a bag of gumballs that we could use. And so the gumball machine ended up being the thing that ticked and set the killer off. And so he starts killing people every time they would take a gumball out of his gumball machine, he would start killing them. And so we had this whole fun thing where he ties somebody up in the factory and then takes them over and dumps them off in the Kansas River off of the side of Carr River Park over there, and just some really cool fun shots. That film I haven't shown it nearly as much as I wish I should, but it's really fun because it was all shot here in Kansas City, and it's got a great fun little murder scene at the end of it. So
Wow.
yeah,
Very cool. And
yeah,
tell me about some of your other projects.
yeah. Sorry, take a drink there.
You're good.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of I've done a lot of the competition stuff over the last couple of years, and I've done that primarily because it's given me a really good chance to work with a lot of people that I had never worked with before. But I'm kind of starting to slow down on that a little bit. Some other things that I've done recently, like I mentioned that I did You Asked for Eric, and Eric and I are actually going to team up on another little short next year as we go into the winter. And I recently did a documentary called When the Daffodil Blooms, which was part of the Fringe Festival. I actually covered my good friend Joel and I used to be in the Springfield Ballet when we were down in Springfield, and he used the inspiration of the Nutcracker to create a brand new musical based in Greek mythology. And so I did a documentary where I kind of followed that journey of them creating this new musical called When the Daffodil Blooms, and kind of how it went from like this idea to like him fully composing a musical, and the stylistic choices that they took, and how it went from just an idea a few years ago when they were at Southwest Baptist down in Bolivar to now being a Fringe show up here in Kansas City a few years later. So that was really cool. That one was great fun for me because documentary style, I can really lean into documentary really easily because of my news background. Because when you think of documentary, that's really what it is. It's just an extended news story. And so I really got to kind of play back into my journalism stuff a lot and doing the interviews and assembling all the sound bites and the B-roll. And so that one was a lot. That one was a lot of fun to work on. So that was one of the more recent ones I did. Outside of that, most recently, I worked with Jordan Nosler. I gaffed a music video for him that he did. I just recently designed and built a set for Jordan Redmond for his film opening night at the Aztec. They were needing a dungeon set from like a castle, and because they had this really cool scene where the characters are kind of set in medieval times, and they're getting killed off and thrown into this dungeon. And so I assembled over about 2 months this huge dungeon set that we ended up filming in my living room here at my house. We assembled it and the crew came in. And so for about a week, my living room looked like a castle dungeon inside. And we had like old doors and like barred windows. I mean, like they get trapped in this thing. And we carved styrofoam for what seemed like weeks because we did all the stonework out of styrofoam and had to like hand carve all that styrofoam to look like actual stone. And so that was a lot of fun. But I love that kind of stuff. And then I mentioned I'm doing another set for Danielle Milton. She's got a film called The First Martian that they filmed out in LA, but they're needing to do a quick reshoot this coming weekend. So I've helped her reassemble one of her sci-fi sets, and we're working through to light that and get that to where it looks just like it did when they shot it in LA. So I've been helping her recreate that set that they did in LA, which has been kind of fun. And other outside of that, like I said, going into next year, I'm kind of taking a small break this fall just to catch my breath a little bit because I've been going pretty hard.
Sounds like
But
you are.
going into next year, Dana has actually brought me a script that he's asked me to direct, and then I'm working with my buddy Jacob on a feature script that we've been working on for about a year now, and we're getting pretty close to going into pre-production on that, and we're anticipating shooting that script next year. It's actually a horror kind of haunted horror film that's got some really great character arcs and some psychological thriller stuff going on in it, and I'm really excited for that because it seems somehow I've directed a lot of comedies by accident. But this is going to be my first like true horror one that I've done probably since the college years. I did one horror film back early in college with my friends Mandy and Kim back home in Tennessee that we had a blast with. But this is my first like jump back into the horror realm, and horror is like my jam. It's my things. I'm really excited to work on
Really?
that. I've been kind of trying to assemble the right team to work on that and figuring out, okay, who's really good in the horror realm here and who can understand this style and play in this space. So it's been, again, that's been the beauty of working with so many people is I'm kind of learning who to work with on certain projects and who
Sure.
not to work with, and playing into people's strengths as we go through that process. So that's
Well,
that's what's up next.
not saying choose me, but look, there's my head.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I know you've done a bunch, and
Uh,
yeah, we'll probably be casting that one here in
Actually,
the next 2 to 3 months. So,
it's all good. It's all good. No, like I there for a while I was doing.
hey,
It
that
felt
was
like
you.
more.
That was you leaning in right there. Did you see that? That did you guys see that? He leaned right into that. Hey, I'm going to audition for you thing.
Yeah,
That's how you.
yeah.
That's how you
No,
get
no,
stuff.
it's all good. Like I said, it doesn't hurt my feelings if I don't get parts because you don't get every part you audition for, and you just
Right.
try it again the next time. So it's like I'm not really appealing for a part right now. I have like too many things going on if it's like soon anyway. So,
Right.
um, but I tell you, I really like kind of like this was me synthesizing your interest into three things. You like set design,
Uh-huh.
producing, like finding locations, getting
Yep.
locations, and directing. And that is an excellent skill set. Um,
Yeah.
the set design, um, I have met a director who does a lot of set design, but for the most part, they don't.
No, I only really know one person that does it and does it well. It's probably the same person that you're referencing.
It might be. It might be.
It's
It's the
it,
only one
I
I
know
know.
my friend Sam Toddy. He does some incredible set works for his
Oh
films.
no.
In fact, he's doing one right now for one of his films that's just incredible. He's completely transformed his living room
Oh
into this
wow.
really cool scene for a Sherlock type film that they're doing, and just some really impressive stuff. And there are a couple of people that do it, and I just think it adds so much to a film. It gets back into the whole idea of production design. I could talk for hours about production and lighting design, But when you feel like you're walking onto a film set and the actors get to walk into somewhere and they go, wow, I feel like I'm in the place where we're doing the scene, that makes me so happy. Just when we did Cold Heart, it was like that. You literally like walk into the set and you're like in this like laboratory, like the space lab, and there's all these cool things and there's lights everywhere. And a couple of weeks ago when we were shooting Jaden's here, when we did the dungeon scene, I remember all the actors going, oh, and the directors, they were just like, wow, this is incredible. Like we literally like shot our very last scene of the film on a legit movie set,
That's
and I've got
awesome.
flats assembled everywhere and like all the lighting and everything all over the place. And I just love that because I think it gives the actors something to work off of. It gives us as directors and cinematographers things to play with and ways to make things new. And I think production design is something that's way undervalued in film. It's so easy to just go grab a location. But that it takes a lot of skill to get into that realm, and there's a lot of like forethought and a lot of planning that goes into it. And it's not practical always, believe me. There's plenty of films that I haven't done production design for where I'm like, yeah, we'll just go shoot down here. But when you get the chance to do it, man, it can really dynamically change a project in a good way. So
Well, from my limited experience, and I'm just talking about sets I've been on, um, I like it better when the set looks like what you're describing rather
mhm,
than a green screen
right.
doesn't set the mood for the actor and then it gets put in later. That's like, it's kind of like when you're talking to a green screen, like you doing the weather, but I'm doing it trying
Yeah.
to show emotion. It's really hard.
Yeah, there's really nothing there. You're just reacting to nothing. And that's a whole thing, as technology's changed over the years. There's a lot of really good things about the changes in technology. For one, I would say it's making filmmaking a little bit cheaper. It's still a very expensive hobby, but it has brought the price of a lot of the stuff that we used to do down. I remember I don't know that I would have produced many films a few years ago because I couldn't afford the equipment, but as
Right.
prices are slowly coming down, I've been able to slowly invest into equipment to where I'm starting to kind of build up my own little arsenal of gaffing equipment and camera equipment to where now I've pretty much got all the stuff. And so I'm not really having to rent a lot anymore unless it's a specialty lens or something. So now there's a long-term cost savings there. But the technological thing, there is something about like what you said, when you can actually react to something and when you can look through a lens and actually see the thing that you're shooting and not go, oh, there's going to be something there. That's a really cool opportunity, and you really lost that a lot with all the change in the CGI and all of that. I was listening to my buddy that did CG work on Jurassic Park, Steve Spaz Williams. He's fantastic. He lives down in Springfield now, and I got to listen to him speak a few months ago. And he was talking about how, one of the worst and best things he ever did was bringing the dinosaurs to life in Jurassic Park because while it changed the industry for the better, it also did some harm as well. And you have to think about that. That's always that fine line we walk. And now in modern era, we're looking at the same thing with AI. How AI could so easily drastically change everything that we do. And I just think anytime that your crew and your cast and your directors that you can lean into the real thing and really experience the real thing, I think your projects are going to be better. I mean, using Jurassic Park as an example, they've always maintained and used the puppets. They've done some CGI in there, obviously for the big scenes, but the T-Rex and the Velociraptors, they've always been puppets, because the actors get to react to them, and it's just things like that where I think as time goes on, practical is sometimes better, if I dare say that out loud,
Yeah.
than CGI.
Um, what are your goals to accomplish? Because you talked about you're doing a lot of the competitions, you're doing short films, you're doing things like that. What is your goal? What do you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I think my goal ultimately now is getting more into the feature side of things. I've been kind of building up my company over the last couple of years. I started Hoot Owl Films in 2024, and I've been using a lot of this to build the portfolio and again to work with people, figure out who I want to work with, so that as I got to the point that I wanted to take the step to the next level, I would have the ability to do that and I would know who to work with. And so next year, after I do the first feature with Jacob, I think I've got a couple of more that I'm wanting to look at over the next couple of years. And I'll still probably toss in a short here and there too. But that's really the realm I'm wanting to get into, is more of the feature narratives. And when I say that, definitely getting outside of the competition world. I really want to, I love the competition world, and the competition world is great for like the rushes and to get that day or that weekend rush of doing it. Um, but there's something about being able to take your time and to be able to really put yourself and invest yourself into a project. And that's something that I've been craving for a while now. And so that's kind of where my approach is going as we go into the future. And I'm trying to kind of pave the path for that first feature. And hopefully that'll be the first of many, I hope. So,
Well, I've talked to people in the past, including the recent past, where they've talked about doing the competition is so rushed, they don't quite finish it the way they want to finish
mhm.
it.
Yep.
And then they go back and they either take out a minute or two or add a minute or two and
Uh-huh.
change it and maybe refilm part of it. And then it's actually done. So sometimes what they
hmm
submit is not
I
really
feel
what
like
they want to finish the project at.
No, I agree. I think every competition film I've ever done before I ever submit it to a festival or anything else, I always go back and fine tune it before I ever submit it to anything else, because there's no possible way that you're ever going to get everything perfect. And you could literally, re-edit a film 10 dozen times if you really wanted to, and you'll never actually get it the way it's never going to be perfect, because we all know that that's just in the eye of the person looking at it. But I do the same thing. I mean, every time I do one, I'll go back and tweak little things and change little things, and I'm like, oh, that would have just been, oh, we forgot we should have used that shot versus that shot. It's just always little stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it does, it's a lot of fun in the moment, but there's also something about being able to slow down. When I worked with Eric and some of the others here recently on some of their projects, just getting to slow down for a minute and really take my time. I remember with Eric's little short that I did with him, I was director and cinematographer on that one. And so I remember spending the time looking at the script and breaking it down and doing the shot list and all the stuff, and then going into the bar the next day and working with Michael Miller, and we like lit it really pretty and had all the sliders and all the stuff set up. It was very cinematically shot, even though it was a 2 minute short little comedy thing. But we got to take our time with it. And when you get to do that, there's things that you can do, and there's just a feeling that comes out of that, because you go at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, we did everything we set out to do. And I know that this is going to be an awesome project because I know that we did everything that we were going to do with it. And that's just a good feeling. And again, it's never gonna be perfect. No film will ever be perfect. And I think that's, something I learned a while ago as a director, is there is a moment when you just have to be like, it's good enough and it's gotta go. And I think working in projects, I've learned that too, because, different people can get hung up on different things on a set. And as a director, you got to be able to like keep things pushing towards the end goal. And that's one thing that I've really learned, and that I enjoy personally, is just like sometimes I've learned to just be like, all right, it's good enough, got to move on, we got to get the next shot, we got to get the next scene. So just always having that end goal in mind and making sure you get there. So
And that might kind of fit in. My next question was going to be, and I'm not sure if you've already answered it, you can say I've already answered that.
that's
But
okay.
what would what would be your advice to somebody
Oh,
starting out?
my advice, it kind of gets back to some of the stuff I was saying earlier, but you are not above anything in the film world. That's what I would say. That's my first piece of advice. I don't care what film school you went to. I don't care what your background is. Respect everybody on the set. The people that I want to work with all the time are the people that I respect, and I know that they respect me and they respect everyone else on a set. What I will not tolerate is drama on my set. I cannot stand that kind of stuff, and I will not work with someone again if they create problems on the set. And I think it's important for everyone to understand when you come in that everybody's got a job. We're all trying to achieve the same thing, and it's a very collaborative process. And so the more that we collaborate with each other, the better of a process it's going to be. And leave your baggage at the door. Come in, do the best job you can do, and guess what? If you do that, we're going to have an awesome project at the end. That's one piece of advice I love to give, because I I hear stories from people that have worked on sets that have been nightmare sets. And I've had a meltdown or two on some of mine in the past. And guess what? I don't work with those people anymore. I don't want to because I want to work with people that show up with a good attitude that all have the same end goal in mind, which is to make a really awesome film. And so that's a huge piece of advice I give. And the second thing was just what I was talking about earlier, which is just lean into everything, get in there, get the experience. Don't be afraid to do something you've never done before. If someone asks you to do something, try it, do it. Who cares? If unless you're working on a big budget feature where everybody has their very specific job, the chances of you having one very specific job are pretty small on an independent film. So if someone asks you to move a light stand, move the light stand. You know what? You might learn something in the process. It's just about being fully involved in the moment and getting the most out of all of it. I mean, I can't stress that enough. How sometimes people think that they're above certain things, and I can tell you right now, as a director, there's not a single thing I have not done on a film set at this point. And if you ask me to do anything, I will walk away from the camera and go help the gaffing team and help the grips move something if I need to, if it makes the process go smoother. I don't care because at the end of the day, we're all working together and just to get that thing done.
That's an excellent point. What do you think makes somebody good at something?
That's a great question. I think attitude makes people great at something, honestly. There are great people and there are wonderful people to work with. And you know, there's let me rephrase that. There's talent and then there's great people to work with, if that makes sense. And you can be the most talented person in the world, but if you come to set with a negative attitude, who wants to work with you? You can be the person that's got almost as much talent but a really positive attitude, and guess who's going to be invited back every single time? I think that's what makes a great person to work with, is that person that when you guys in the production or you in the call day or and you wrap for the day, that you go, man, I'm so glad they were on my set and I'm so glad we got to work together. I text all the time with so many of the people that I've worked with on our projects, and we stay in touch for months after the projects. And every once in a while, we'll just be like, "Hey, how you doing? It was so great to work with you. I hope we get to do it again soon." You want to have that feeling about people that you're working with. You want to be able to invite them back. And so I don't care how good you are because there's a lot of really talented people out there and some that even intimidate me, but your experience cannot be exchanged for your attitude. And I think attitude is way more important than experience any day.
I love that answer. Wonderful answer. My next question, a very important question since you're in Kansas City. How long did you live in Springfield first?
So I was in Springfield let me think about that for a second. 2008 until 2019. That was the second longest place I've lived past home. And then I've been in Kansas City since 2019. I actually transferred up here with the bank in 2019, just in time to land for the pandemic. So life was real fun for the first couple of years I lived here. So much fun.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I've now been in Kansas City. This year will be what? So six years this year, I think. Is that right? Yeah, six years in
I
Kansas City.
moved here in April of 2019, by the way.
Oh, did you really? Yes, I
Yeah.
was I was October of the same year. So
Yeah.
and it was chaos because I remember I was trying to sell the house down there or buy a house up here, and then the world shut down.
Yeah.
and
Yes, it
and it,
did.
yeah, and I was really excited to move to Kansas City because arts and culture and concerts and sports and all the things that like
Oh
make
yeah.
up Kansas City and make Kansas City awesome, and then it was
Well,
over like overnight.
well,
And so
because you were in Springfield, your question is going to be a two-part question. Normally it's
okay.
just one. What is the best place for cashew chicken in Springfield is one. And then
Oh,
two, if you could only recommend one barbecue spot here in Kansas City, what would be your
okay.
recommendation?
Okay, I can answer both of those. The cashew chicken question, I would be remiss if I didn't say Leong's because he created cashew
Right,
chicken. You
right.
have to go with Leong's. My second favorite Chinese place in Springfield actually was called Yum Yum Bowl. It was on Battlefield.
That my
I
dad lives 3 minutes from there. But yes, I've actually
love
eaten there. I ate there last time I was in Springfield about a month ago.
Yeah, it's actually their General's chicken is my favorite, but love Yum Yum Bowls General's chicken. My friend May actually used to own that place, and it just so fantastic. I would eat there all the time. And then barbecue. See, that's a loaded question for me because I also lived in Memphis for a while, which is the other barbecue capital. And so I'm very biased on barbecue because I remember when I moved here, I'm like, oh, the other barbecue city. What am I going to think? So if I want bougie barbecue, I want Q39. That's my favorite, like hands down. And if I want just your everyday barbecue, for me, it's actually Joe's. I love Joe's barbecue. Joe's to me is the closest to what I used to eat in Memphis when I lived in Memphis. I really like Joe's for that reason because it reminds me of home a little bit. So those are my two favorites: is Q39 and
Okay.
Joe's. We're getting a new Q39 in Lee Summit. I'm very excited about that because it'll be about 5 minutes from my house, which is probably dangerous, but
Oh no, no. I'm in Grandview, so
oh yeah. So you're not too far away either. So we're
yeah.
both just minutes away from Q39 barbecues.
Well,
So
that
yeah.
sounds good. I'll tell you, my favorite's LC's. Probably second is Slaps,
Uh,
but I
yeah.
do like Jack Stack a lot.
Uh-huh.
I need to go back to Joe's because my son-in-law and I went to about 20 barbecue places to
Uh-huh.
compare. And we went together. We went to lunch like a bunch for like a
Oh,
year.
that's cool.
And we compared burn-ins and beans at each place.
Oh,
Those were the things we ordered.
makes
Not every
sense.
place has cheesy corn, so we couldn't get full
Right.
Kansas City
And
everywhere.
that's
But
my weakness is the cheesy corn.
yeah, yeah, I guess only Kansas City has cheesy corn. I've never seen it anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's kind of our thing, but no. In the end, boy, we had some really close competition. I kind of like Arthur Bryant's.
Yeah.
Their sauce, a lot of people don't like it. I kind of like their sauce, but their service was such that it made it kind of went down, but
Yeah.
they're still really good. But yeah, in the end, I think our finalist, Jack Stacks, actually was probably our third or fourth. But
Oh, it's funny. I'm actually not a Jack Stack fan, but again, it's difficult for me because I ate Memphis style barbecue for so long, and so I kind of compare to that. I think that's why I lean towards Joe's so much, is because it's probably the closest to what I remember eating back home in Tennessee. I will tell you what has come from Tennessee that's now in Kansas City, which I love, is Gus's famous fried chicken. So
yes,
that actually started in Memphis, and it's
I've eaten
here.
it in Memphis. I travel for work. I've
Yeah.
eaten it in Memphis, and I saw
Yeah.
they had one here. So
Yeah. So there's one in Leewood and there's one in Lee Summit now. And in fact, the one in Lee Summit's right across from my day job. So that's a little dangerous every once in a while. But I love some Gus's fried chicken. So
that's good. Well, I'll tell you, if you've ever been to LC's, I think LC's is the top-notch barbecue. Guys, I'm more.
I tell you what, Kyle, we're gonna go to lunch there one day because I haven't been to
Okay.
Elfie's yet. So we'll have to get lunch there.
We'll go to LC's. Just don't look around too close. You
Hey,
can look online and you can see they open up like that. I'm guessing they smoke it all night and they open it up in the morning when you get there. All the smoke billows out everywhere. It's beautiful.
ooh, yay.
Beautiful.
That sounds like an experience that I'm willing to go have.
Okay. All
So
right. We'll go to
yeah, so
lunch.
so barbecue. Let's do it.
Hey, I'll do it with you. I'll do it. No problem. I'll even write it down. So
Heck yeah.
LC's with Will. I'm going to get to know Will better. Um, um, you talked a little bit about like with drama and stuff. Have you had
Yeah.
someone, no names, of course, but
Yeah.
anyone on set that you've said never again?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Several. I mean, over the years, definitely a few people. Not a huge number. I think a lot of people, I think also as a director, that's also up to you to kind of step up and say something when that's starting, because I think a lot of that can be squashed if you will just say something to them. But there are occasionally times where it happens. I won't mention names, but a few years ago, I had one of those where I had somebody kind of blow up on set, and all of a sudden production freezes for like 30, 45 minutes, and it's wasting a lot of people's time. And I think that's the big problem I have with that kind of stuff is you're not respecting everyone else and everyone else's time. There's a lot of people there all with the common goal. And now all of a sudden you just threw a wrench into everybody's plans that day. And so that's the bigger problem I have with all that, is just the disrespect for the others in the process. Because again, this is such a collaborative process. And I think filmmaking, we have to look out for one another. And yeah, I just don't think that stuff can be tolerated because of that.
You said you studied theater, or you have a theater
Yeah,
degree,
I
or
did.
you
I
have.
did. So my theater degree is actually in set and lighting design. Big shock. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I actually got a scholarship to University of Memphis to do set and lighting design. So my theater degree is in the design, the technical side actually, which again I've applied a lot into the filmmaking side. So, again, I say that too to say, the skills can be used amongst anything that you do. I tell people that all the time. Even in my current job as a marketing director, I get to work on TV commercials and I get to do, marketing campaigns, very big ones with some very big sports teams in town and things like that. And everything that I've learned from my TV days and from my theater days and all of it all comes into play in some way or another. And so I've always tried to tell people, like, whatever your experience is, learn something from it, because you never know when that experience will lend you a hand later down the road. So, and that's happened to me multiple times over the years. I never thought this would be handy, but here it is, and I'm using it now for something. So,
Hey, any words of wisdom as we wrap up?
just make them. I think this is the one thing I would say. Make a film. Don't let yourself get in the way of doing it. There was a period, I kind of mentioned, I did the TV stuff for a long time, and it was hard to do film when you were doing TV, let's be honest, because like our schedule was insane. And when I got out of that, for the first few years that I was doing marketing, I wasn't doing film, and there was always kind of a void there, and it was always kind of the excuse of, well, it's going to be this, and I don't have the right camera, or I don't this, I don't do that. And I tell people this at IFC all the time, and that is, there's no excuse anymore. We've all got phones now that shoot cinema quality video. Even an older model, more recent phone can shoot decent video. There's no reason why you can't go out and learn and do the process. And that's my biggest advice, is just pick up the camera, or if you're an actor, go audition, or if you want to learn how to grip, go be on a set, or if you want to be a PA, whatever, just get the experience and do it, because the longer that you make up excuses, the more miserable you're going to be, and the more you're not going to be doing the thing that you want to do. Because what I found is that the minute I got back into it, there were opportunities all around me. I mean, absolutely all around me. I work with so many people now, and that wasn't the case until I got myself back in the community and plugged myself back in. There were so many years that I was just like, oh, it would be nice. It would be nice to make a film. I should be making a film, but I've got this or I've got that. And that's my biggest piece of advice, is stop making excuses and just go do it. With Independent Filmmakers Coalition, I'm on the board there this year, and earlier this year I created a monthly film challenge, and the reason I did that, Kyle, was because I wanted to give people a reason every month. And I know that not everybody's going to do it every month, but what I did is I wanted to give everybody a reason to have a reason to go do it every month. They're 1 minute films. Anybody can enter them. It's really easy. It's 1 minute. I don't care if you shoot it on your phone. I don't care if you shoot it on a professional cinema camera. It doesn't really matter. But the idea has always just been, give them a prompt and let them go make something using that prompt. Because sometimes just people need a reason to go do it. And that's been really rewarding. I think I had mentioned this to you when we were talking, but we've produced over 50 films out of that program now.
Wow.
Since January of this year. And that's 50 local films that were made in Kansas City because people picked it up and made a film. And they're all only a minute long, but that doesn't matter. You made a film. And there are people that do that, that when I met them a few months ago had never made a film before. There's a certain group now. I'm just gonna shout them out. Brandon Lowe and his team, they've done some incredible films in that challenge, and just blew us away last month with their zombie mash music one that they did, where they created a whole musical and a zombie musical, and just to see how far they've come and to see people like that blossoming and budding out of that monthly thing. And I was talking to another person just this week that had thanked me for that, because it's telling me that it had given them a reason to go make a film, and it gives them a reason to be motivated to go do it every month. And so it all just gets back into me coming back into what I was saying earlier, which is just go do it. Don't sit around. Don't make excuses for yourself. Excuses are just going to box you in, and until you act, and then I promise, the minute you go make one, you're going to keep making more. So that's the best advice I can give everybody, is just don't let yourself get in the way of yourself.
I'll tell you the IFCKC, and I probably go twice a month for the last 5 years, or sorry, twice a year for the last five
Uh-huh.
years. And I'm going to be there this Wednesday. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I've only been involved
Hmm.
in a couple of the film challenges, but I've gone to see movies that I'm not in. I've gone
Yeah.
to the meetings. I absolutely think it is such a wonderful, wonderful organization. And I think you doing the 1 minute film challenge every month where people have the option, like, hey, this gives me a reason to do it.
Yeah.
Um, People get better. I really think that people get better the more they do it, like with acting, with directing,
Hmm.
with editing, everything. Um, People get better. And doing a 1 minute film is like a small
Right.
challenge
Right.
for everybody in those categories to get some experience and then to build up. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm glad you came up with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I love it, Kyle. It's a very rewarding thing to me, and I don't think I would have even joined the board of the IFC if it wasn't for the fact that it gave me kind of a really unique opportunity to give back to the community that kind of welcomed me in with open arms. A couple of years ago, I had done the film challenges with James down in Springfield, the Sado, and when I came back, I'm like, why am I not doing film in Kansas City? Like, this is where I live. This is where I should be doing this. I could be doing it a lot more frequently if I would just do it here. And I started searching, and I stumbled across this thing called the IFCKC, and I had never heard of it before. Turns out it's been around for forever. And I remember I went to my first meeting, and it was the meeting just before the one night stand in 2024. And I walked in not knowing what to think. I was very scared, because I was like, I don't know anybody at this point. And now 2 years later, I know almost the whole filmmaking community, and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
that's because everyone welcomed me in with open arms. And so I joined the board of IFC for that reason, I think, is because it's given me a chance to give back to other people and to inspire those other people that are walking through the doors for the first time, like I did a couple of years ago, just trying to find their community. And if I can give that back to somebody, I think it's worth it. So,
yeah. It's Independent Film Coalition, Kansas City
Kansas
chapter.
City.
So it's I always thought it was International Film Coalition, but I found out it's
So many
independent
people think
recently.
that.
I found out recently.
We've even had board members make that mistake.
Yeah.
So it's very common.
That's what I thought it was for like a really long time. And then I saw it written down and I'm like, oh, it's Independent Film Coalition.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's a wonderful organization. Do you have anything else to say? You've absolutely been a wonderful guest. You can tell
No,
you've
I
been in TV before, you're very comfortable and you expand on answers. You're absolutely wonderful to interview. Is there anything
yeah.
else to add?
I don't think so, Kyle. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. I've watched so many of your videos of these interviews from different people, some that I've worked with, some that I haven't, some that I've been like, man, I want to go work with them now because of hearing some of the things they said on the show. And so, I love the collaboration and the creativity that you're creating by doing the show, and how you're connecting people through this show, because there's honestly a lot of people now that I've seen on here that I want to work with. And hopefully somebody will think the same about me, and we'll continue this big collaboration that's called filmmaking. And maybe you're going to audition for me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you
So,
what, I have met literally hundreds of people because I like some people work with the same director over and over,
mhm.
like we were talking about. I don't necessarily do that. I have worked with some directors five or more times, several actually,
Uh-huh.
but I also work with people one time or two times, and there's so many people doing this, and I like to work with different groups. I
Right.
enjoy going to a set and there's 10 people there. I'm like, hey, I recognize you. And hey, how are you doing?
Right.
Oh, we worked on something.
Uh-huh.
It's such a small community that I was on something yesterday and I saw Jackie Terry. I've never met Jackie Terry. I've never worked with Jackie Terry. but I knew who he was just from post and because we're
Right?
reading the same stuff. It was great.
Uh-huh.
So
It
yeah, it's just fun. So and you're the
Yeah.
same way where I've truly enjoyed talking to you. Uh,
Yeah, and I've seen you, and so I've seen you in a half dozen films, over the last
yeah,
couple of years.
it's
We just haven't had a chance to cross paths yet, and,
yeah.
and it'll happen sooner or later. So that's the fun of all of it, and doing things like this, you get to meet and get to know people, and it really is like we say at the end of the day, it's not a process that you can do by yourself. It's a we process. I don't make a movie, we make a movie. It's a process, and I think we keep that in mind as you're going forward. So.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for taking your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. It was great to be on the show and hope everybody has a good week. So,
Thank you.